Hey, what's up, everybody? So, I was going to share a story about a friend of mine who just got back from a deployment and what his training program is going to look like moving forward. So, he recently got back and he's had some time to downregulate and allow his sleep to get back on schedule, allow time with his family to get back on schedule, and he's finally ready to hop back into training. So we're slowly going to ramp that up. And we had to come up with something very simple that he could follow consistently, and that had to be done in under about 45 minutes. It's kind of his time for 4 days of the week. So I'm going to go over that in a moment, but it's important to remember when we're looking at training, we really want to be selective about what we're doing and making sure that we're not getting into what's called junk volume. So, what exercise selection are we picking? What's going to give us a tremendous amount of return on our time while being as low risk as possible, and will get us in and out of the gym. So, here we go. So, day one is going to be his push day. So, on his quote push day, he's going to pick some sort of squatting variation, and he's going to pick some sort of pushing, upper body pushing variation. So he may alternate that upper body pushing variation each week where, 1 week it's vertical pressing, 1 week it's horizontal pressing. And when I say bilateral, I'm just talking about we're using two limbs to accomplish the task. Think of it like that. So if we're looking at a squat, for example, he's using two legs to stand back up. All right, so we'll get into unilateral stuff in a moment, but and then if it's a upper body vertical press, it's bilateral. He's going to do, as an example, going to do a push press with a barbell from a front rack position, dip and drive. So basically, he can pick whatever he wants, whatever feels best to him, and does not cause any of his injury history to bother him. So whatever movements he picks, I would advocate that he stays with those movements for somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 6 weeks, 4 to 8 weeks, and then rotate out different movements. And he can even get into different rep schemes and all that stuff later. But anyway, those are the two big things that he's going to do on his day one. But basically what we're going to look at is in between each set of squats that he does, he's going to do some ankle mobilization, and he's going to do some work to loosen up his calves. And then in between each set of upper body pressing that he does, he's going to do some sort of thoracic mobilization, and he's going to foam roll his lats. And then if he has time, what we'll look at is doing some sort of supplementary movement to enhance the squat and to enhance the pressing that he's doing for the day. So as an example, if he goes with a back squat for his main movement, then he might do a front squat as a supplementary movement, and that can be supersetted with, if his upper body movement is going to be a push press, he could do a dumbbell bench press, and those two could be supersetted. And generally that superset will be for slightly higher volume with a little bit with less rest in between sets, and he can squeeze in 2 to 4 sets. So not highly specific, we're just trying to get him back in the gym on a consistent basis. So that's day one. Then day two, what we're going to look at is doing some sort of bilateral pulling. Okay, so how this might look is he picks some sort of hinge or deadlift variation. So this could be a trap bar deadlift, conventional deadlift, sumo deadlift, and many more variations from there, but just pick some sort of hinge. And then from there, we're generally going to look at a vertical pull. So maybe a lat pull down, maybe a weighted chin, and then some sort of horizontal pull as well. So this might be a seal row or a dumbbell row, something along those lines. And then in between each one of those pulling variations, he's going to do some sort of mobility for his hips, some sort of, perhaps it's tempering for his quads, for his hamstrings, whatever the case may be. We effectively have a menu of mobility, flexibility, quote activation and quote core work that he can add in between each set to ensure that he's getting everything, that all the boxes checked that he wants. So that's his day 2. Now, day 3 is going to be some sort of conditioning. So the conditioning is, I like to give people as wide a variety of conditioning as possible, because I think a lot of times people think of conditioning and they think of one thing, and that is, well, I got to go jog. Well, for this guy, jogging may not be the best thing for him because of his injury history. So if he's jogging and having a ton of impacts throughout the system, well, what's happening if he is striking the ground inappropriately? What's happening if he is not in an optimal position when he's running? Those are things to think about. So maybe some sort of non-impact cardio would be better, or maybe some sort of strongman circuit, or sled pushing, or sled dragging, or marches in the pit truck. These are just a couple ideas. So we can look at conditioning or cardio existing on a continuum, where we might have LISS, low intensity steady state, maybe performed on a bike on one end of the continuum, and maybe on the other end of the continuum we have high intensity interval training, where it's Tabata bike sprints. And then we have everything in between. A guy named Joel Jamieson does a tremendous job of going into a ton of detail over all of the different types of conditioning that you can pick from. So that is his day 3. And then I would encourage him to rotate each week, do something different, do something new, because he has a lot of training under his belt. So we need to look at doing things he's not accustomed to doing. And then day 4 is basically a weaknesses, imbalance, and conditioning day as well. But what we're doing on that day is we're doing a total body unilateral day. So as an example, we might have 4 exercises lined out. And we might have a single arm dumbbell press, and that's going to go each side. And then a single arm dumbbell row performed each side, Bulgarian split squats each side, and finally it's going to be a single leg RDL performed each side. So this is where we're not interested in how heavy is he going, and well, it doesn't need to be heavy enough to matter, let's say that, but we've already done our quote-unquote heavy work on the front side of the week. This day is focused more on addressing weaknesses or imbalances, and then if he wants to do some conditioning integrated there, then he can do basically as many rounds as possible, or he could basically look to increase his rounds each week to make everything more dense. He can really get very creative. The big thing is, when I'm training these guys, is to go through and look at areas where they've probably never trained before, and with that we start to get some quick wins. We get the low-hanging fruit, if you will, and then I explain to them how they can integrate that within their week, and then how this block is going to set them up for the next block and the next block from there. But that's a rough rundown of how his training week is going to look. And we didn't even talk about sets and reps and all that stuff, but there's 1,000 different combinations out there for a ton of reasons. But the big thing right now is this first block. What we're looking at is week 1. We're going to do what's called the minimum effective dose. We're going to do probably 2 sets of everything, and then we'll slowly work up in terms of work from there. And we're not going to jump into 10 to 15 sets right away or anything like that, because a lot of times, especially type A personalities, will automatically assume that because I'm doing more work, it must be better. What I'm trying to explain to these guys is we want to look at the concept of minimum effective dose. What's the least amount I can dose you with in terms of exercise and still get the result that we want? So if we're seeing progress with 2, 3, maybe 4 sets of an exercise, going outside of that may not be needed. It's just going to lead to more wear and tear sooner. So we can go 2, 3, 4 sets and go quite high on the intensity and still get a tremendous return, as opposed to doing 8 or 10 sets, but you're not going as hard and the quality's not as good, and we're having more wear and tear throughout the system. These are all things to think about. So anyway, that's just a very simple plan that you can try out within your own training if you like. So essentially, just to recap, we have a heavy push day, a heavy pull day, a conditioning day, and then a unilateral circuit day. And that's it. So anyway, just as resources, once again, from a conditioning standpoint, check out Joel Jamieson. And then you can start to play around with, okay, what are some varieties of those movements that I've never done before? Because that makes the mental aspect much easier when you go to get in the weight room and yeah, I want to strain, I want to lift heavy, but I have no idea how heavy I'm going to lift. So as an example, if I go in and I have a straight bar and I'm going to do a barbell back squat, I know what my barbell back squat is. So I'm competitive. I'm going to chase after that number to a point. But if I take a transformer bar and I put it on setting number 3 and I adjust the pipes down to hole 3, I have no idea what my heavy 3 rep max is going to be there. So now it takes the pressure off a little bit in terms of lifting heavy on that exercise. So now I can go in, get after it, have fun, and just do my best and see what happens. So the more you can spice it up, the better, and it makes it a little bit easier to go in the gym every single day and get after a new exercise you haven't trained before. So anyway, just a couple thoughts there. If you have any more questions, things I can help with, please reach out to me at Dynamic Human Performance, dynamichp.net. Have a good day.